Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. Happy Friday. Human beings have been wondering about unexplained lights in the night sky since the first Neanderthal cooked an ocelot over a campfire and looked up. But in our age, in the modern age, fascination with UFOs really began in the summer of 1947. That's when a man called Mac Brazel found something very weird on his ranch in Corona, New Mexico. That's about 85 miles northwest of Roswell. Suspecting it might be debris from outer space, Brazel dutifully brought the pieces to a nearby military base. The next day, the base issued a press release confirming that the material was in fact from a flying disc, a flying saucer. News agencies around the world announced the shocking find. Flying saucers! Then, within hours, the U.S. military changed its assessment of what these pieces were. Brigadier General Roger Ramey, commander of the 8th Air Force, announced that, in fact, the debris from outside Roswell was nothing more than a weather balloon. Not a big deal, nothing extraordinary, certainly nothing extraterrestrial. Was General Ramey telling the truth about that? Well, it looks like he may have been. It may, in fact, have been a weather balloon. But that was not the end of the story. Over the past 75 years, the U.S. military has gathered evidence on a remarkable number of puzzling aerial phenomena, most of which were definitely not weather balloons. Unexplained flying objects have buzzed U.S. military bases, missile sites, ships, aircraft, submarines underwater, often at speeds and in directions that seem to defy any known human technology. The Pentagon has said next to nothing about any of this in public. Instead, it has consistently covered up these sightings. Virtually everything we know about UFOs has come from whistleblowers. By the time this show launched nearly 5 years ago, it was clear there was definitely something very odd going on in the skies above us. UFOs were not some crackpot theory cooked up on late-night radio. They were absolutely real.
Is America hiding alien technology? Is it privy to extraterrestrial life? For decades now, alien optimists have been asking these questions. And last week, they got yet another reason to do that. Courtesy this man, David Charles Grosh, a former U.S. intelligence official. Not too long ago, he led a team studying alien life, and he now claims America has craft of non-human origin, or what are popularly called unidentified flying objects, UFOs. A current U.S. intel official has also confirmed his claims. His name is Jonathan Gray. He works at the National Air and Space Intelligence Center, and he says that we humans are not alone. Are their claims credible? And what evidence do these individuals have? And what is the American government saying about all of this? Let's find out.
High level from the US government is saying publicly, we are not alone.
We're definitely not alone.
The U.S. may have a secret UFO retrieval program. Those are just some of the incredible claims laid out by the Pentagon UFO whistleblower David Grush. Now, among the claims from Grush is that the government has a non-human aircraft in its possession, which has been kept secret from both Congress and the public. He recently filed a whistleblower complaint claiming that he gave classified proof to Congress and the intelligence community inspector general. But while News Nation has confirmed Grush's credentials, we have not seen nor verified the alleged proof that he claims to have given to investigators. Here to help me break down some of these claims, Bryce Abel. It's good to see him again, filmmaker and host of the Need to Know podcast. Bryce, thanks for being here.
Hi, Natasha. It's good to be here, and it's such an important day. Thank you.
We know the Inspector General of the Intelligence Service has said that Grush's complaint is credible. What is your reaction to the whistleblower story? Do you think that Grush is telling the truth here?
Well, I've met Dave Grush twice. I was there for your Need to Know, or rather your News Nation interview, and also the day before we talked to him. I think he is credible, but let's set the table for this just a little bit. Last December, the House and the Senate both passed the National Defense Authorization Act, and it was signed by President Biden, and it involved actually providing the language for protecting whistleblowers on the subject of UAP or UFOs. And he is the first person to come forward. And as you pointed out, he's a very credible witness, and people are really going to see that in the special that comes up tonight. So I think Dave Grush is telling the truth as he knows it. The issue of proof is a different one, because obviously he was allowed by the Inspector General to tell this story, but obviously the Defense Department isn't letting him walk out of the Pentagon with a piece of spacecraft or a photo of an alien. So that's going to have to be what the Congress actually does now. They're going to have to get into this, Natasha. They're going to have to do the investigation.
I think one of the most shocking claims the whistleblower made, perhaps, was about humans being killed by non-human intelligence. Let's take a listen to that quickly together.
Have human beings been hurt or killed by a non-human intelligence?
While I can't get into the specifics because that would reveal certain U.S. classified operations, I was briefed by a few individuals on the program that there were malevolent events like that.
Now I'm scared.
And the White House is kept out of it. Congress has been kept out of it and in the dark about it. And you're starting to hear more of this because now Congress is demanding answers, because they're noticing and found out that a lot of these projects are black book. They're not on the money that they approved, and they're demanding answers about it. Good for them. Here's what Stephen Greer says about that.
But this object was retrieved because it became disabled. Some of these retrieval operations are not extraterrestrial, but they would like sometimes the public to think maybe it was, because the bigger secret, I will tell you right now, is not the extraterrestrial issue. It's these technologies which an unsupervised and frankly illegal operation have, which is a threat to the national security, period. This we will prove. And this is a bigger threat, the existence of these in the hands of unsupervised operations that have escaped the oversight of the President of the Office of the President and the Congress since 1956 to 1960.
And so he then explains the difference between the man-made craft and the ones of extraterrestrial origin, which we've been reverse engineering for years, since the 1940s. And he shows the man-made side by side. So it's important to understand, yes, there are the alien craft that we have. We know that. That's without a doubt. But then we're also been reverse engineering them, and they look close, but not totally like them. So here he gives an example of the differences here.
If I had time, I would run through. We can go through very quickly. I think people in the military and in Congress and the American people need to know the difference between the man-made advanced technologies and how they look, and the extraterrestrial vehicles. We're going to run through a side-by-side. You can look and see ET, one on the left, seamless. It is actually created in a material science and technology we don't have time to go into, but we understand that, versus the man-made ones that have components, parts, wires, and what have you. Next. And again. Next. And again. And then you hear on the right, that is the Norton Air Force Base 1988 air show, classified. We have a witness who was in there, and these on the right are man-made. They were late Mercury era, 59 through early 60s in their construction, because we had mastered gravity control in October 1954.
Welcome, family, to another edition of Stranger Thinking Media. This is Yeshayahu, where we bring you the gospel of Yahushua HaMashiach, Jesus the Christ, to address the problems of a modern world. And today's topic, Conspiracy Uncovered, Wheels in the Sky, Part 3, Unidentified Aerial Phenomena, UAPs, the Statue in Babylon, the World System, Wheels in the Sky, the Aphonym. Chapter 1. Now as I beheld the living creatures, behold, one wheel upon the earth by the living creatures, with his 4 faces. The appearance of the wheels and their work was like unto the color of beryl, and they 4 had one likeness, and their appearance and their work was, as it were, a wheel in the middle of a wheel. When they went upon their 4 sides, and they turned not when they went. As for their rings, they were so high, that they were dreadful, and their rings were full of eyes round about them. 4. So, topic today, again, the conspiracy is uncovered. I guess we've all, at some point in time, we all kind of wondered, are we the only ones in the universe, or are there other beings out there? And so a lot has been coming to the news lately concerning this topic, and, so much information's coming out. We're being inundated, flooded with it. So right now, government officials are basically saying, "Hey, yes, we do have uncovered alien technology, that we have been visited by extraterrestrials. UFOs, unidentified flying objects, just means it's an unidentified flying object. It could be anything. It could be an aircraft from another country, but." They're being specific. They're saying, hey, these are things that are not of this world, not with current technology. So the question is, I guess for each one of us is, well, do you actually believe it? Or, if it's not, if what they're saying is not the truth, then why would they be telling us this at this point in time? Could it be just a distraction? Who knows? But we're going to look at it from a certain perspective. Let's just say they are telling us the truth. As this comedian once said, had this been 15 years ago, we would have been running for our shotguns and everybody would have been in a panic. But we're kind of numb to crazy news now, so we just kind of sit back and go, I like the Chinese spy balloon story better. It's like we're waiting for the punchline here, basically. But, everything I do goes back to the scriptures. So I'm going to take you back to the scriptures. And do they talk about extraterrestrials? Do they talk about spacecraft and things of that nature? And you have to keep in mind, like, we're going to go into Ezekiel Chapter 1. And you have to remember, Ezekiel he's not a prehistoric man, but he's living in a time where there's basically no higher technology, You use what's around you, So it's not the Stone Ages, but, not far from it, basically. And how would he describe a spacecraft if he saw one? And so that's the part that I find interesting. So let's read in Ezekiel. And when the living creatures went, the wheels went by them. And when the living creatures were lifted up from the earth, the wheels were lifted up. Whithersoever the spirit was to go, they went. Thither was their spirit to go. And the wheels were lifted up over against them. For the spirit of the living creature was in the wheels. When those went, these went. And when those stood, these stood. And when those were lifted up from the earth, the wheels were lifted up over against them. For the spirit of the living creature was in the wheels. Now, all that's kind of interesting in that it keeps using this term living creatures. And yes, I want to do this video on that subject because living creature, you got to understand, it's obviously talking about what we call angels. But angel is more, and I'll say it now just so it'll segue into another video at some point, but angel is a job description. The living creature is probably a better translation. Angel just means messenger, and messengers can be, Christ can be a messenger, right? Messiah, he was a messenger. Mortal men can be messengers, and the living creatures can be messengers. And remember, the word messenger is translated as angel. So essentially, I'm going to go back and forth on those terms, but I don't want you to get confused. So the word creature, living creature denotes something created. And in this case, it's obviously not a human being. It's a higher order level creation, a being above man, greater than man. So it turns out these are the what we call cherubim, and we generically call them angels. But I'm going to start to get away from that term, because these creatures are also called Elohim, which if you understand any of the Hebrew, it literally means the mighty ones or the powerful ones. Is generally denoted for spiritual, basically disembodied type creatures. I shouldn't say creatures, disembodied type entities. Because not all Elohim are created. And that's going to get deep. I got a book coming out called God Through the Eyes of the Hebrews, The Elephant in the Temple. And that's going to go into that, because that word Elohim pops up in strange moments. For instance, it said, the Lord, it's King James-ish, the Lord God defeated the gods of Egypt. Well, what does it mean, the gods of Egypt? Right? Are they just talking about idols, or are they talking about actually gods? And if they're talking about actually gods, is it a polytheistic thing we're dealing with, which is almost blasphemous to talk about at this point. But, it's very interesting to conceive. Once you understand the Hebrew, stuff starts to make sense. And remember, the term Elohim is also applied to those created beings we call angels. Remember, angel is just a job description. It means messenger. So the better term, living creature, I like that better. Or Elohim. King James uses the small e to denote the angelic beings or the living creatures. Anyway, we won't get too deep into that, because that's another video. But just understand that there's more to this than meets the eye. And so we're going to go to Daniel 2, because I do want to emphasize the point that there are living creatures other than ourselves, according to the Bible. And they do come from the sky. What we are calling, flying saucers, Ezekiel might be calling wheels within wheels or whatever. But there's something specific that comes from the sky in the last days. And it's something that denotes basically the return of the Messiah. And it comes from heaven, comes from the skies, it comes from outer space, if you will. But maybe we're talking the same things. I think most science-minded people, I have no problems with science. What I have problems with is scientism, and we'll get into that one day. But we could all be talking about the same thing. It's something from elsewhere, a living entity or living entities from elsewhere. We tend to think of them here, you see on the news, little green men with big heads and big eyes. Well, the scriptures talks about living entities that have four faces: the face of a man, the face of an eagle, the face of a ox, and the face of a lion on one head. So, we could be talking the same things, only the scriptures are basically saying these entities are Elohim, or living creatures. So anyway, Daniel chapter 2. Thou, O king, sawest, and behold, a great image. This great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible. This image's head was of fine gold, his breasts and his arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass. Really, the word is bronze, and I'm emphasizing that for a reason. Let's get the word brass out of our heads. We're talking the Bronze Age. So this is a King James translation, but the word is really bronze. Okay, continuing. His legs of iron, his feet part of iron and part of clay. Thou sawest till that a stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon his feet, that were of iron and clay, and brake them in pieces. Then was the iron the clay, the brass, the silver, and the gold broke into pieces together and became like the chaff, something blown in the wind, right? Became like the chaff of summer threshing floors, and the wind carried them away, that no place was found for them. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. Wow. This is all symbolic of something that the prophet is saying is coming to the earth in the days of the kings of the feet, described as the feet of iron mixed with clay. And if you follow history, you kind of know that means today. Now, this video is not going to be about that. Maybe I could do another video at another time describing more in depth what these feet of clay mixed with iron are. But basically, the legs of iron coincide with the Roman Empire. And so you have the head of gold, which is the first world empire, ruling world empire devised by man, really devised by the Satans. They put it into the head of men. And then the second world empire, Persia. The third is Greece, and the fourth is Rome. But then Rome does something funny. It goes down again in that iron. That pure iron is now iron mixed with clay and separated on 2 feet. So that's kind of interesting, 2 feet. So all the other empires were one, essentially. So you get to the legs of iron, now it splits into 2. And of course, the Roman Empire had a capital at Rome and a capital at Constantinople. So that kind of, jives. But in the last days, it's also split. But now, instead of being pure iron, it's mixed with iron and clay, the feet, right? And so the stone comes in the days of those kings, this stone from heaven, this thing that comes from outer space, if you will, I'm just putting it in those terms just so I don't lose the science people, you know what I'm saying? But, yeah, the scriptures do talk about extraterrestrials. It does talk about, if you want to call it spacecraft of some sort. But it also talks about these things being manifest, or at least being observable in the end times. Daniel chapter 2. This is the dream, and we will tell the interpretation thereof before the king, meaning King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon, right? Thou, O king, art a king of kings, for the God of heaven hath given thee a kingdom, power, and strength, and glory. And wheresoever the children of men dwell, the beasts of the field and the fowls of the heaven, hath he given it into thine hand, and hath made thee ruler over all of them. Thou art this head of gold, and after thee shall arise another kingdom inferior to thee. Gold is more valuable than silver, right? And another third kingdom of bronze, which shall bear rule over all the earth. And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, for as much as iron breaketh in pieces, and subdueth all things, and as iron that breaketh all these, shall it break in pieces and bruise. So if you notice, each material is less valuable, but much stronger as you go down from the head to the feet, essentially. And that's a good description of the different empires. Babylon was a very refined spiritual kingdom, philosophical in nature. And then, of course, silver is pretty valuable. And bronze, which is denotes, if you understand the Bronze Age, the first weapons of mass destruction were made of bronze. Once they learned how to smelt bronze, their weaponry became, if you didn't have bronze weapons, you just had clubs, because pretty much people fought with clubs and makeshift bows and arrows before that, tomahawk type stuff. But when they developed bronze, it changed the game. So, of course, iron is even better. If an iron sword meets a bronze sword, it'll break the bronze sword in pieces. So each kingdom gets a little stronger, right? And each of the first three kingdoms has an ending, is an end point. But you see, the end point of this final kingdom made of iron, and specifically the one iron mixed with clay, its end point, it's touching the ground. So there's nothing to follow it. So something comes from the heavens to destroy it. And, we can go into more detail on that, but understand there's something extraterrestrial that will come that will destroy this system. And so I want to make note of this, is that this denotes the world system, the empires of men, strung together, one after the other, the whole world system. The system I refer to as the system of Babylon. If you notice, Babylon starts it. And so, and this is only, and that was only the second dispensation of Babylon. There was a primary dispensation, a tertiary, ground zero, the epicenter was, the story of Nimrod, right? So this Nebuchadnezzar just restores that. And every kingdom after that has been the guardian of the oracles of Babylon, if you will. And so now the Roman Empire has control, is the gatekeeper of the oracles of Babylon, the daughter of Babylon, if you will. So that being said, the Roman Empire is the gatekeeper of the oracles of Babylon in the last days. And what does that mean? So I am definitely, and very soon, because I realize people are confused, no pun intended, are confused about what Babylon is today. But just understand, the Roman Empire today is the gatekeeper of Babylon, the daughter of Babylon, Mystery Babylon. So we'll go into that in another video, and I really want to bring that one out because people don't understand it. And it is imperative that you understand what Babylon is today. Because the scriptures say, come out of her, my people. He's telling his people to come out of Babylon, which insinuates his people are in Babylon. So we'll identify the Roman Empire today, and we'll identify Babylon today in another video, not this one. Again, continuing in Daniel chapter 2, and whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it of it the strength of iron, for as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay, and as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. Now, that's a deep statement, and it means a lot more than you think. So I'm not going to go into it. There are people who try to secularize it, but there's certain terminology in there that says that they shall mingle with the seed of men, seed of men. That tells me something right there. We'll save that for another video. And I've gone over it, not in detail. I've kind of scanned over it in other videos, past videos, so that you understand a little about it, but there's more to it. So we won't get into it here, but we'll get into it on another video, of course. And in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. Wow, a kingdom that will stand forever after it destroys these other kingdoms at its foundation? For as much as thou sawest that the stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and that it brake in pieces the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold, the great Elohim hath made known to the king what shall come to pass hereafter. And the dream is certain, and the interpretation thereof sure. So there's a kingdom coming that will replace all these kingdoms on the earth. and it will last forever. I wonder what kingdom that might be. So if you think about it, ultimately, in the book of Second Ezra, it denotes it as the kingdom of Jacob, which is Israel. The kingdom of Israel shall rule the earth. Of course, the king of Israel is of the tribe of the lion of the tribe of the house of Judah. And we know who that is, I think, right? A lot of people, he's commonly or colloquially called Jesus the Christ, right? But he's of the tribe of Judah. You know, in the Hebrew it would be Yahudah, Yah's praise, right? So anyway, so that kind of gives you an idea of what the role of the nation of Israel was. You do notice that none of these kingdoms come about while there was a united Israel. You follow? It was when Israel divided, civil war, they separated Israel and Judah, that they became weak. And that's about the time of the rise of these kingdoms. Assyria first, basically. Not that it was a world-ruling kingdom, but it annihilated Israel, essentially, and left Judah alone. And so when Israel became weak, these world empires came alive. You get it? As long as Israel was strong, these world empires had no ability to arise. Israel was the gatekeeper. It kept these Gentile nations at bay. Once Israel fell as a whole, these Gentile powers could rise up out of the abyss, which they did. And Yah told Israel, you know, if you guys don't keep it together, obey my commandments, and stay strong, what's going to come out of that abyss is not going to be your friend. In fact, they're going to recognize you as the thing that denied them access to this world. And they're going to persecute you. So that's why Yah could tell the children of Israel, you know, choose this day, blessing or cursing, life or death. You do what I tell you, these Gentile world powers will not come about. If you allow them to come about through your mishandling of your own internal stuff, like disobeying the commandments, yeah, when they come up out of the abyss, out of the sea, you know what I'm saying? Out of the sea, right? Out of the deep. The first thing they're going to do is lay hands on you, the guard, the gate guard that kept them locked up, Israel, and they're going to destroy you. But they won't destroy you because Yah won't allow Israel to be destroyed. But Yah will allow Israel to be chastened. And he allowed all sorts of very bad things to happen to the children of Israel up to this day, right? So that's part of that synopsis there. But there's more. So we're going to go back to Ezekiel and his description of these spacecraft is what I want to call them. I mean, however you want to look at them, but let's say they're spacecraft because they're hovering around him. He can't really describe them. He's using archaic terminology to try to describe something that's indescribable. Undescribable and indescribable. Yeah, that sounds better. So Ezekiel 1, and the likeness of the firmament upon the heads of the living creatures. You remember? These created Elohim. Was as the color of the terrible crystal stretched forth over their heads above, and under the firmament were their wings straight, the one towards the other. Every one had two, which covered on this side, and every one had two, which covered on that side, their bodies. And when they went, I heard the noise as of their wings, like the noise of great waters, as the voice of the Almighty, the voice of speech, as the noise of an host. Sounds like rocket engines or something, I don't know. When they stood, they let down their wings, and there was a voice from the firmament that was over their heads. When they stood and had their wings, let their wings down. So that's Ezekiel's description of this craft. And I'm going to show it to you again. It's just, I like this rendering of it because it's kind of eerie. But can you imagine seeing something of this nature? It's kind of spooky, you know. Huge and terrible, yet magnificent in the end. I just really love this depiction. I mean, I don't know how accurate it is, but it's just, I like what he did there. It's kind of neat. I think the awesomeness of it is the key, you know. So basically, I'm going to start to close this video out. But understand, we are not alone. But maybe it's not how you think. You know what I mean? You're thinking of these little green men with you know, big giant eyes and stuff. Well, I don't know. Maybe they're of another material or immaterial, no material. Advanced beings beyond your wildest imagination in craft that you cannot even describe. So anyway, I thought I'd take this opportunity, since everybody's thinking about UFOs, to, you know, basically talk about UFOs. Back to Ezekiel 1. And above the firmament that was over their heads was the likeness of a throne, as the appearance of a sapphire stone. And upon the likeness of the throne was the likeness as the appearance of a man above upon it. And I saw as the color of amber, as the appearance of fire, round about within it, from the appearance of his loins even upward, and from the appearance of his loins even downward. I saw as it were the appearance of fire, and it had brightness round about it, as the appearance of the bow that is in the cloud in the day of rain. So was the appearance of the brightness round about. This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of Yahweh. And when I saw it, I fell upon my face, and I heard a voice of one that spake. So Ezekiel was saying that in the presence of this thing that he's witnessing, he just fell on his face. That's kind of how powerful it was. And, you know, I look around at us today and how much we take the Most High for granted. I don't think we realize how great and powerful this being is. And I use the term being, the verb to be, because that's what his name means. I am, right? Yahweh. So keep that in mind, my friends. Keep that in mind. So farewell, family. I love you all so much, and thank you so much for continually supporting my content. If you did enjoy this video, hit the thumbs up button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell, and share this with your friends and family. I'm sure they'd find it interesting as well. I'm very excited to continue this journey with you. I thank you all for bringing certain stories to my attention and for continually keeping me updated with certain events around the world. I very much appreciate you all, and shout out to the channel members. And may everybody have a beautiful and blessed day who's in the body of Messiah, Yahusha HaMashiach, Jesus Christ of Nazareth. And I'll see you all on the next video. Shalom.